Welcome back to Kyle's Garage. Today we are diving into the bell housing of this 1969 Austin Healey Sprite transmission and clutch assembly because it's not shifting properly. Of course, it came out of this little blue Roadster back here, and I tried a few of the simple fixes. I repaired the pedal, I bled everything out, and I made sure it was all working as good as I could, but peering inside of here showed me that there was deeper things wrong. And so I'm gonna grab a couple wrenches, get to work on taking this apart, show you guys what that is. All right, so it's pretty simple process today. Got to remove all of the bell housing bolts, including all of the stripped out ones. I think all of these are going to get new hardware because it's all pretty grungy. Taking out the last bolt here, and we'll see. Just like that, we have our transmission and our engine. I'll tell you one little tip I like to do. Once stuff like this has been taken apart, thread bolts back into where they came from. You can lay them out on a piece of cardboard or draw a template on a sheet of paper, and those are all fine and dandy, but this works for me, and it's something that I recommend. I just put them back, and then I literally cannot forget where they came from. And we're going to slide this transmission back. And it's lucky because it's fairly light. All right, so with the transmission pulled back from our engine, we can kind of visually inspect a lot of the parts. And I don't suspect there to be anything wrong on this side of things. So with the pressure plate, the clutch plate, or the flywheel, what's actually gone wrong here is in this housing. So I'm just going to reach in here and remove our clutch fork. One of the nice things I'm seeing in here is there's no clutch material. There's a lot of grease and grime and oil, but there's no friction material from a clutch disc, which makes me happy because that means we weren't slipping the clutch at all. There we go. That's our problem right there. And this is the throwout bearing. So what happens is this is the piece that presses on the pressure plate to separate the pressure plate from clamping down on the clutch disc. And if you look at this one, it might not look bad if you don't know what you're looking at. But the fact is, it's supposed to look like this. And that is carbon graphite that acts as a bearing or a bushing to prevent any friction against the pressure plate. And now this is a brand new one that I happen to have, and it came with the car, which is good because it would be something that I need. Except I have elected to upgrade in this case, and I went to BritCarFixes.com, and John there has devised a bushing. Well, this one's actually a bearing, a roller bearing that is retrofit onto the original fork. And you can see this one actually has a full-on roller bearing, and he says this is out of a late model car that's good for hundreds of thousands of miles in something like that. Whereas these are notorious for wearing out after thousands of miles, not even tens of thousands of miles. So as much as I enjoy having this engine out, I don't want to do it that often. So an upgrade like this, it's a lot more money. I don't want to downplay that at all. One of these comes in at like 16 bucks or something like that. One of these is over 100. However, if it prevents me from having to pull the engine again, this is worth every penny. So something like this, it's a nice little upgrade. You're not going to see it. I can let anyone drive the car. I don't have to worry about them burning up the throwout bearing or anything like that. So that makes life a lot easier for me. So a nice little upgrade. But I'm gonna go ahead and pull the pressure plate off and take a look at the clutch, and more importantly, the actual flywheel, because I can replace everything else, but I don't have a new flywheel. And I could order one, but I'd prefer not to. I'm trying to kind of do everything on a budget here. So I'm going to go ahead and put a new clutch fork on as well, because this one looks like it has taken some heat just because of the metal on metal contact there. Heat treated this fork a little bit. So I happen to have a new one of those that came with the car. I'll put a new boot on as well. The transmission still shifts pretty nice. No weird noises in there or anything. And that's dry on lubricant. So next steps are going to be to really start cleaning and go ahead and pull the pressure plate off. Take a look at what the clutch disc looks like, because I do have a new pressure plate and clutch disc. So I'm hoping that the flywheel is in good shape. See if I need to resurface it, but with any luck, everything's still in pretty good shape. The previous owner has done this procedure and he put a new clutch on it, and he said it wasn't but a few years ago that he did it. So I'm hoping everything's still in pretty good shape, but let's go ahead and pull that off and see what it looks like. All right, so now I have the pressure plate off and the clutch disc out, and the clutch disc actually looks pretty good. Plenty of friction material, all the rivets look nice, no loose springs, no discoloration, no warping. Just looking at it, could probably reuse this, but a new one came with the car. There's no reason to reuse it if I have a new one. I'll keep it as a spare. Same with the pressure plate. The friction surface actually looks pretty good. It's fairly clean. All the springs are in nice shape, but where the throwout bushing actually rode has some heat discoloration, and I can tell that it's been mangled up just a little bit, and I'll keep it as a spare, but it's worth throwing a new one on. What I am going to do is put in some new parts. So there's a couple pieces. New clutch fork, as I had discussed previously. It's gonna go in. New clutch disc and new pressure plate. So pretty easy to do. This included yet another throwout bushing that I'm not going to use because I'm not doing the carbon graphite. I'm doing that roller bearing style. So what I'm gonna do is start cleaning here and start getting a few other parts prepped. I'm actually gonna go ahead and tear down a few things on the front of the engine as well, because I want to do that before I put a parts order in tomorrow. So let's reposition the cameras and look at what I'm doing there on the front end, because it's something that I just barely noticed, and it would have really annoyed me if I would have taken it all apart, put it back together just to find this issue. The other item that I am looking at is, for starters, this fan, but you can see there's a lot of movement in it, and I think that is due to the water pump, but I'm gonna check and see that it's not just the pulley. But this is kind of a pain enough to get to that I am probably gonna go ahead and replace the water pump while it's easy access. They're like $24 or something like that. So it's worth doing. Can put it back in the car and not have to worry about it. Makes life a little easier. Yeah, oh wow, that's wrecked. The reason I'm replacing this fan, as you can see, the teeth are all screwed up, cut up, like they got into a radiator at some point, and it's painted all kinds of goofy, and it's dirty. So I have a new clean fan for installing. It's easy, yet again, it came with the car. So loosening the belt tension and pulling this belt off. This belt is all dry rotted and cracked. So that is garbage. Your water pump should not spin like that. That is bad news. Put this right here. should not have any movement, so. Yeah, this is gonna get new hoses too. Here's what's really bad. I'm really surprised this wasn't leaking. That's gonna do it for this week's video. I'm cleaning up my hands and throwing in the towel, quite literally. It's gonna be a lot of cleaning, and I'm doing all of that tomorrow night, but I know the parts that I need to go inside in order. I've got my fan, I've got a fan belt, I'm gonna need a new water pump. I'm probably gonna go ahead and do new hoses while I'm at it. I've got the clutch on the bench, new pressure plate. I'm going to replace the distributor. If you wanna see why, tune into next week's video. Go ahead and subscribe down below if you want to see more videos like this. We've got a bunch of fun content coming. I'll see you next week.